Fox Sports 910 on FM 99.9 HD2.
Rudy jumps on the right foot of guest line here on Fox Sports 910 as he joins us now. And Rudy, I want to ask you from all the different hats you wear when it comes to representing athletes, specifically football players. This is the time of year before camps, or at least in the last few weeks, where we see a lot of players getting themselves in trouble. Maybe, DUIs or not having their license, insurance, and registration, things like that. How do you and your team, get in front of these guys and try to get ahead of it so they don't end up being on the ticker?
Yeah, so for us, when we sign guys, and typically it's actually a real issue. And what I mean by that is all of these players, they hire agents. And when they hire an agent, they expect their agent to be their personal manager and to also be their business manager and to also be everything for them. And unfortunately, everybody knows the word agent, but when you actually, dig down into it in the NFL circles, the NFL PA and the NFL in general, they don't even call agents. What they call them is contract advisors. Huh. So what that really means is when a player hires an agent, he thinks he's getting this assistant or a manager, but in reality, what he's really getting is a contract advisor, a guy that's going, or a woman that is going to help him, negotiate his contract. So my group specifically, we started a company that, yes, we're trying to change the game per se, where we're contract advisors. We're going to negotiate or renegotiate a contract, but we're also going to be, your management services. So we focus on driver's license, insurance, rental policies, LLCs, operating agreements, employment agreements, S corps, if you have that, foundations, 501c3s, automatic bill pay. Just today, we had a player that we had to sit down with his mom and book her entire season of travel to all the home and away games to make sure she had all of her flights, all of her hotels, and everything dialed in. But one of the biggest problems that we see with our players every year is the number of guys that don't have a driver's license and they're still driving, the number of guys who have an expired driver's license still driving, the number of guys that are driving a $150,000 car and basically have like collision insurance on the car, like the cheapest insurance you can possibly get. Most of these guys have outstanding tickets, which then turn into warrants. And, they just, if we're being honest, they're young guys who make a lot of money and they just feel like, who cares? I'll deal with it when something happens. What they don't know is that there are media people who literally sit inside police stations and go through public information just waiting to pop somebody. And sure enough, that's what they do. And of course, today you saw Jordan Addison going across the ticker for a DUI.
Rudy, I'm real curious. Does the NFL still do their so-called camps where the rookies particularly will go to different camps and get instructions about this? And if so, does it just not sink in?
No, they don't. The NFL doesn't do stuff like that. What the NFL does do for rookies is they have, what's called a rookie symposium, right? And the rookies will go there and they'll just basically have a bunch of speakers, what you and everybody else are used to, which is, you go, you sit in chairs and you listen to all these horror stories from, former NFL players or whoever it may be. And they tell you about, the financial woes that can happen. They talk about, other legal issues that can happen. And, the fact of the matter is, all of these players, they just don't think it'll ever happen to them. They know what's right and wrong, and they know what they should and shouldn't be doing. But at the same time, the vast majority of these guys think, that's not going to happen to me. And, I think a real good example of that is Henry Ruggs, right? If we're being honest, I hear a lot of people talk about Henry Ruggs. Man, what an shit. That guy blew his entire life away. I can't believe that somebody would do something like that. And I actually have the opposite take. My take is I can absolutely believe something like that happening. I mean, you take a kid like Henry Ruggs from a very small town where he's from, all of a sudden he's one of the top, recruits in the country, and he lands at Alabama, which is one of the top programs in the country. He plays his butt off there, becomes a first round pick, and overnight he goes from sitting in his mom's, little apartment complex somewhere, or his grandma's little house somewhere in the middle of a country town with, not even $10 to his name. And overnight he gets drafted by the Las Vegas Raiders. He's sitting on a private jet flying to Las Vegas. And then a couple weeks later is told, oh yeah, and by the way, here's a 4-year with a 5th-year option, fully guaranteed contract of $15 million living in Vegas. And it's real easy for a 35-year-old or a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old to just shake their head at these guys and say, what an idiot, what this and what that, and these guys are stupid. And it's like, yeah, well, let's go back and see what you were like when you were 20. Let's go back and see what you were like when you were 22, 23. Now, could you imagine yourself at 20, sir, at 22, buddy? Could you then imagine yourself as a superstar? And on top of that, someone who just got handed, between $15 and $20 million living in Vegas. I mean, when you're a guy that's like that, you got things going for you like that, trust me, you think you're invisible and you think that you're Superman, and you don't think any of that stuff will happen. So when it's 3:00 in the morning and you've had 75 drinks, you feel like, hey, I'm good. Nothing's going to happen to me. I'm Henry Ruggs. Everything's always been good.
Yeah.
And then next thing you're killing people. And I promise you, Henry Ruggs is sitting in a jail cell right now, just shaking his head.
He's Rudy Carpenter here on Fox Sports 910. As of yesterday, around 11 o'clock or so, there's a website called Over the Cap, and it had the Cardinals at $35.4 million, and only 2 teams ahead of them. The Commanders at $37 million, and the Patriots at $43.8. So a lot of money that the Arizona Cardinals have. Teams like that, the top 10 teams that have, let's just say, $25 million plus. You as a company and your team, are you guys consistently kind of going at those teams because they have money, and some of your free agents that are sitting out there, they may get an invite?
Yeah, well, I think when you're looking at teams that have money like that, it doesn't really matter, because the guys that are available right now, the guys that don't have a job right now, the guys that are looking to get an opportunity to get into a camp somewhere, those guys are going to be minimum salary guys anyways.
Okay.
So, if they got an extra $30 million, they got an extra $25 million or an extra $40 million that they're under the cap and they can go sign players. Doesn't really matter, for guys like, that who are looking for a job, making $800,000, $850,000, or if they're a guy that has, already become a vested veteran, making the league minimum at, I believe, for a guy like that, it's like $1.2 million or something like that, $1.3 million as a vested veteran. So that money really is just insignificant when you stack it up against, $40 million. I think all those teams that you just mentioned, the Cardinals, the Commanders, right? What was the other team?
The Patriots were number 1 at $43.8 million.
Those are all teams, that I think have a plan, right? And their plan is Patriots, young quarterback, right?
Yep.
Commanders just drafted a young quarterback. And so I think those teams are doing a couple things. They realize they're not going to be good, right? And so, those are owners who are probably sitting back saying, hey, this is a good opportunity for us to, save some money, put some money back in the owner's pocket, right? And I would bet their plan is they're going to say, hey, we have a window here with a rookie quarterback that's going to give us a chance to win. Why? Because typically you're paying a quarterback $30, $35, $40 million a year, $50 million a year, and it eats up such a huge chunk of your salary cap. But when you have a rookie that's making, not a lot of money, it gives you a chance to go out there and play in that free agent game. And you look at some of those teams in the past who've done it, the Eagles teams with Carson Wentz, right? The Rams when they had Jared Goff, right? Some of the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes, obviously. These were teams that did it perfect in the sense of they were able to pay a quarterback peanuts compared to what a quarterback market typically is, while able to go out there and take all that money you would normally give a quarterback and pump it into an offensive line and a defensive line and some skill players. And you saw what happens after that. Right after that, you're going to have to pay that quarterback because now he's a big time player. And now the Chiefs, what couldn't they do? They couldn't keep Tyreek Hill, right? Because it was just too expensive. Or, just look at all of these, young quarterbacks that happens. Kyler Murray, I think, is another example. He played well. He did enough to show the organization that he was a franchise guy when he was making, very, very little money. Then all of a sudden he becomes a big time, franchise quarterback. You got to pay him $250 million. And now all of a sudden you can't afford a DeAndre Hopkins. You can't afford some of the players, that were helping you win while Kyler was young.
Such a chess game when it comes to putting these rosters
You're
together
not
with all
kidding.
that money. Rudy, as always, man, we appreciate you, man. Thanks for some time today.
All right, guys, take care.
Rudy Carpenter joining us here. You can follow him at Rudy G Carp 12. Of course, former Sun Devil and NFL quarterback. Appreciate his time. He's brought to you today by All City Towing. Join the team at the largest towing company in the state. They are hiring dispatchers, call takers, lot attendants, drivers, customer service personnel. You can enjoy benefits like the state's most advanced towing equipment, set work schedules, a healthy 401k employer match, health benefits, employer-paid life insurance, and how about a monthly fuel allowance? Ready to take your career to the next level? Visit them allcitytowing.com. That's All City Towing, where your future is on the move. Speaking of on the move, sad story as we get into a football story that hit over the weekend. Plus, you'll hear from Ed McCafferty on Brandon Ayuk's situation with the 49ers. It's Football 50 next.
Amount of bucks.